Good evening, families, and welcome to tonight's parent session. We are delighted that you have joined us. I will ask again that you keep yourself on mute unless you are speaking so that we can limit the amount of noise that is heard as part of the presentation. I'm also going to ask that you have your cameras on if possible. Just imagine you're at the YMCA, we'd be able to see you. The speaker would be able to see you and interact with you. We're going to have a number of breakout sessions tonight. And when you go into those breakout sessions, in most cases, there's only 3 or 4 or 5 of you in the breakout session. So having your camera on so that you can interact with your colleagues is just an important part of the conversation. So we'll make sure certainly that the questions that are being posed when it's time to go into the breakout sessions are clear so that when you go into the breakout sessions, you can have some good dialogue. So again, if you can have your cameras on, please have them on. I know some may have issues with their cameras or can't turn on their cameras, but please act like you're at the YMCA and we get to see your lovely faces for 2 hours tonight. So again, thanks for being here. We're excited about the session. My colleague who will be facilitating the session, Dr. Bridget Mitchell, um, is a phenomenal educator and friend. She's one of my sorority sisters and my link sisters, and she said that she offered to teach a class, and I always tell people don't offer to do anything because I take you up on everything. So I'm excited that she was able to come on and share her knowledge with us. Just a reminder, we are in the final sessions for this semester. We have no sessions in December, so we will finish up in November. So please make sure that you get your sessions in prior to the end of November or the middle of November. And then also there had been a question regarding whether or not we would do the parent mixer, and based on, again, what's happening with COVID and space availability, we will not have a parent mixer. But one of the things that we do want to do is really support those of you who have small businesses. So we're going to be sending out something in the next week or so to find out information about those who have small businesses and either provide a service or have a product that could be either delivered and or shipped to individuals, and put together a guidebook that we can send out to everyone so that we can support your businesses in December as we would with our parent mixer. So be looking out for that so we can get information from you. We're going to put that booklet together, get that out to you, and then also try to distribute it via Facebook and other website venues, just so that we can try and help support your business. So if you provide either a service or you make a product, or you make candy or cupcakes or things of that nature, and again, you're able either to deliver and or ship items to individuals, then make sure that you get that information to us so that we can support you. Everybody's asking about what does spring look like for us, and right now we don't know. So we will probably start with a virtual platform in January. We are planning a National School Choice Week event, and we're working out all the details for that. It'll be a school fair, but different. It will be outside because we can't do any indoor type events. So more information to come on that. So we are planning something for January for families to be involved in. So one of the things tonight, as I said, we're going to put you in a couple of breakout sessions throughout this session, but also if you have questions as we're going through the presentation, please put those questions in the chat and we will then get that information to Dr. Mitchell. So without any further ado, Dr. Mitchell, Bridget, you are on.
Good evening, everyone. And I want to say, give a tremendous thanks to Deborah. She is very honest. If you raise your hand, she will call on you. But for me, this is really a great opportunity. The work that I do really is grounded in working with children and families. And so this is really special to me to be able to work with families and parents who are really, trying to improve their capacity and more importantly, improve the capacity of their young learners. And so this I want to say afternoon, the time blurs together during this time. We're always on a virtual meeting and you can't tell it whether it's day or night, so I apologize. Today's topic will be, how does who you are impact how you learn? And as I was preparing for this presentation, I really did some deep thinking about what I wanted to present for you today. And I thought it would be great to have kind of this introspective journey where you can look at yourself as a learner, because as parents, I'm a mom, it's great to understand how we learn and how we interact with the world and our support of our children, which is often very challenging, right? And so because we were looking for those strategies, but the core of learning is the same, whether you're 2 years old or 90 years old. And so I just want to, before we begin the presentation, to create the frame that learning is part of living. So as long as we're living, we're going to learn. And that may be formally, it may be that you take a class or a course or a workshop or a training, or it could be informally. It could be, your aunt or grandma teaching you how to bake a cake. We are always in this cycle of learning. And so what I would ask of each of you today is just kind of, as we go through the material, think about yourself. Think about how this information pertains to you. And then we'll segue into thinking about how it can apply to others. So the learning objectives for this today you'll understand the characteristics of who you are. And I think in many of my presentations, most people know who they are. And I often say, get out the mirror, right? Because when we get really close in the mirror and we're doing our eyebrows, and I don't know how to do eyebrows, by the way, but when we're really close in the mirror, we can really see all of those contextual aspects of our face. And so, and this look will be internally. And so tonight, what we're gonna do is look at how culture, temperament, learning style, your conflict style, and your personality really does dictate how you learn, how you take in information, and how you work with others. And then finally, we're going to consider how knowing who you are after you've looked in that proverbial mirror, what does that mean for you and learning? So who are you? So first, I think it's really important to get a cultural context of who you are. And often when we think of culture, especially in the social political climate that we're in now, we often think of race and ethnicity. But culture is much more deeply embedded in every part of who we are. And so I often go to Bronfenbrenner's ecological model, and I'm going to say that this conversation this evening will be a little high level, where I'm going to align it with the theory, but then really usable, I hope. So that's my plan. So please don't be put off by the theorists. Those theorists build the context of the work we're going to do together today. And so, but what's really unique about Bronfenbrenner's ecological model, he really talks about how everything impacts who we are. So of course, when you're born, that's kind of the easy piece, right? When you hold a new baby, you like, oh, they have blue eyes. Oh, look at their fingers and their toes. They have skin just like grandma. Oh, look at that. So you can see all of those physiological aspects of culture. But the areas that are often hidden are those characteristics that are often under the surface. Those are a result of where you're born and where you live in. So think about the community you grew up in, the church you attended, the school you attended. What were the resources available in your community? Was there a big grocery store or was there a small town store? All of those create your cultural pattern, if you will. And so often we look at those aspects as nature or nurture. Nature, what you're born with, and then nurture the things that you get as you're living, as you are on the journey. And that those elements are given from other people, situations, and other contexts. And so really when we're looking at culture, and when you look at the news this evening, there's always a story on culture. Think about those aspects of nature and nurture and when they apply. Are there any questions on that? So what is culture? So culture are those integrated patterns of human behavior. And this is really important when we're working with one another, because if you're at work, you're working with all teams that have varied cultures, right? Everyone grew up in a different neighborhood, some in rural neighborhoods, some in urban neighborhoods. Everyone has a different religious background. Everyone has different cultures and beliefs. And right now we're going into the holidays, different ways of celebrating their families and celebrating the holidays. So just know that every area of your life, culture is embedded. So just for an example, I'm going to share my cultural dynamics just so that you can see how deeply it is. So when you look at me, of course, there's some characteristics that you know off the bat, or you think you know off the bat, just by the way that I look, based on my title in my introduction slide. You make a lot of assumptions. And so for me, I can say that I was born in the United States. So that gives me a geographical identity. I'm African American. My family have European Americans, Native Americans. And so, so think about your unique fabric. I love to think about a beautiful blanket and all of these little threads that we gain as we're living, right? And so think about deeply, what did your grandparents share with you? What are your cousins share? What are those unique characteristics that folks have blended into your family? I'm a female. I'm an educator. That gives you my professional lens. I'm a classical vocalist. That gives you something that you couldn't ordinarily see by just looking at me. And we all have those hidden characteristics. So we go to every table, every negotiation, every collaboration with all of these aspects. I'm married. I'm a mother. I grew up in the Midwest, so some of the characteristics from Midwesterners may be a little bit different than Southerners. So think about all of those aspects. I'm a pet owner, and an interesting caveat for this, I'm also a trained mediator. I had a really difficult times mediating cases with pets. Because so I bring that cultural dynamic to the table in my work. I have a blended family. So I have, a stepdaughter. My husband has a son. I'm a first generation college student. I hope you're thinking about you, because right now I'm looking in my mirror. What do you see in your mirror? I'm an urbanite. I grew up in an urban community where things were moving and shaking. And for that really does shape my perspective on working with children and families and looking at needs. My current role, I'm often making decisions for children in those more urban environments. And my lens shapes the decisions that I make. So now I want you to think about what I shared, because Bridget is pretty cool. My mirror is overflowing. There's so many cool aspects to myself. And I just want you to take a moment and just jot down some of those descriptors that you might not have been thinking about, on the surface. What can you tell me about you that I can't see? What is it unique about you? So I'm just going to give everybody a few minutes. Okay. So now that you all had an opportunity to think, does anyone want to share some of those cultural dynamics that people might not know about you, but that are a core of who you are and your identity, and a chief driver in how you make decisions and you navigate your life? Anyone want to share? One or two people?
What was the question again? I just hopped on. I apologize to everyone for being late from work.
That is so okay. So what we've just done is we've looked at those kind of cultural characteristics that make up who we are. And everyone took a moment to kind of jot down a few of those descriptors. I shared some, though, those kind of on the surface descriptors, like I'm a female, African-American woman. And then some of those that may be hidden. I'm a classical vocalist. I'm a mom. Those things that people can't necessarily tell about you just by looking at you. So I'm going to just give a few minutes, if anyone would like to share just one or two things that you have thought about that everyone may not know about you, but is really a core in who you are and your identity.
Okay,
I have
so
a
I
couple.
see, we'll do Holly and then Laurel.
So I have written down that I'm a Christian. I'm a mother of 9. I live in the forest on a hobby farm, and I grew up with a single parent. I'm married, I'm a homemaker, and I love babies.
Thank you. That is so cool. And I don't know if you guys get goosebumps when you hear other people's stories, because they're so, in many instances, they're so dislike who you are. It kind of like gives you the energy, the collective capacity that we have. Thank you for sharing that.
Laurel Ann?
I appreciate the one about being a Christian. I'm also a homeschooler, like I've homeschooled my kids, and I've moved 35 times in my life. And so I come at, I find that that's kind of, I don't know, there's some people that really value, oh, well, we've been in the same house, or my kids have grown up with the same kids like their whole life, right? And so I just notice it more, like people that value that versus people that value like the opportunities that traveling brings.
Thank you for sharing that. You have a unique geographical lens, right? Because you've had that benefit of seeing different, the ways different people live in different places. And even though we're all people, we do different things, right? We love different, especially like barbecue, right? I love everywhere I travel to try the barbecue. So little things like that are those drivers that make us up of who we are. And generally, when I introduce myself to someone and say, hi, I'm Bridget, I don't have all the opportunity to share all of those beautiful layers that make me who I am. So thank you. Did anybody else want to share before we move on?
Mr. Nielsen.
Yeah, I can share. I'm a husband of 15 years, dad of 2 boys. I'm a pastor, ordained pastor, a world traveler. We've been foster parents for several years. I'm a musician of multiple instruments, and I'm actually a black belt in Taekwondo from back in the day.
So a black belt, first of all, I can't walk straight, Deborah knows. But think of all of those cool things that people bring to the table. And so what the things that I can't do, you can do. And I want you to put that lens on. And even when you're thinking about your children, and many of you share, you have multiple children. It's so easy for us to say, well, why can't you do this? Why don't you do this? Well, guess what? Our children have those unique lenses and perspectives also based on the experiences that they've had to date. So just remember that, put that in the back of your minds. Okay, so now I think we're gonna move to a breakout. And what we're going to do is try to make the connection between culture and learning. So all of those things that we just talked about are drivers in how we learn, and more important, what we want to learn, right? What we're interested in. For example, I love pets, so I could probably have been a zoologist. I love them so much. Where someone else, I heard that you, sir, what was your name again? You play multiple instruments. I think that is so cool. So something more musical may be more directly aligned with your passion. So in our breakout session, we're going to look at how does your culture impact what you're passionate about. Everybody's looked into their mirror. Everybody knows who they are. So now in the breakout session, just share a little bit about how those experiences of your life and who you are create your passion.
Yeah, we needed more than 5 minutes. I'm just saying.
Oh, whatever, Amelia. Anyway, for those who were able to have some good discussion, I'm going to call just a couple of people to share, because we've got a couple of breakout sessions. So we got to learn how to be succinct, clear, and quick. All right. So let's see. Brett Roller, you were in one of the breakout rooms. What was something in your group that you can share?
Well, I mean, pretty much everybody in the group catered around a lot of different, not necessarily different religious beliefs, but we had one gentleman that's actually a church planner, and he works with human trafficking and stuff like that, and doing, I guess, God's work and stuff like that. And then we had another lady that she actually, she's from Hispanic origin, and she's very strong in her faith as well. And we just all spoke of the different things that we cater to and can, what we're the stronghold with our family in. And it seems like we had two really great mothers in our group that, pretty much cater to the kids all the time and have, just that capability to work with them. And then you had the gentleman who's catering not only to his own family, but to, families that were less fortunate and needed, guidance in other countries, Southeast Asia, etc. And I mean, so there's a lot of similarities, but at the same time, just different approaches to it with what our strong points were.
Great. All right. Let's see. Jake Ainsworth, another group.
Hey, sorry, our camera's not working right now.
No worries. Go ahead.
We a lot of the time was spent in our group just more going over the identifying aspects of who we are, and using those identifier words, kind of like she was talking about, looking in the mirror. That was kind of the majority of our breakout time.
Okay, appreciate that. Jose Lesquez.
Well, we mostly talk about how in our culture, we're Hispanics, every decision that we have made is about our kids and how can they succeed. Some other ladies talk about how traveling made her look at the world different because she saw how other people lived. So yeah.
All right, thank you. Matt Devine.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go into a different room because my kiddos are in that room. Our group talked about just how each one of us individually are going to be different compared to someone else in the group, because we all grew up. One said that she wasn't ever encouraged to go to college, but as an adult, she ended up choosing that, and now she's wanting her children and to do that same thing. And another one discussed about respecting other people's views. So no one's alike, and so if someone doesn't agree with something, to respect them, to understand that they're coming from a different culture. Those are some of the biggest points.
Okay, Tamara Coonery.
Hi, can you guys see me?
Yes.
Okay. Our family, our group talked about how much we have such great passion for our children and our families. Two of our moms were single moms, creating this culture and passion for love and family all on their own. One of the ladies in the group is an amazing counselor and supporter and educator through TANF, which is a really amazing program for families who need that support. And we all kind of talked about how we kind of fell into our love for family from our childhood, and how we could remember gathering around at church and just having that family support no matter where we were. So.
Okay.
Okay, and thank you for sharing all of that and what I got out of that. So I hope I'm just gonna tell you how I'm feeling after that share. So I feel closer to you, even though, and so I hope you felt that in your individual groups, that you are making these really unique connections by sharing who you are. You kind of get closer, right? So it's just like this deep appreciation for one another and the acknowledgement that we can be different, but we can still work together, play together, and live in communities together. And I think each of those shares kind of gave me a goosebump moment, because I think once we can appreciate one another, then we can not only learn together, but work together. So the next area, I really love this. And generally we talk about temperament in relation to children. And probably about midway my career, I'm working with teams. I start thinking, why don't we talk about temperament with adults? Because this is really relevant in how we kind of interact. And so I want you to just kind of create yourself a frame and just to kind of think about if you were at work or at school or any of these places, or planning a vacation with your family, and as I go over these different areas of temperament, because I think they'll be more realistic and relatable if you can kind of think of a situation. So how does temperament influence how you learned? And so temperament is just basically how we self-regulate, our regulatory processes in relation to the environment, in relation to the stresses, in relation to the challenges, and in relation to celebrations, right? So we all have these varied areas of temperament that are going up and down and up and down in everything we do. So as a parent, your temperament may be a little bit, you may be able to tolerate your husband a little bit more than your brother, or you may be able to, work with your church group a little better. And I'm going to use I have two sisters. I love them to death. We all have different perspectives. So my temperament is all over the place trying to balance those relationships. So this is really great to understand. And the first part is the basic body rhythm. And body rhythm is incredibly important to learning, because you have to understand your sense of timing, right? When do you eat? When do you sleep? When do you need to have some time to yourself? When are you ready to be social? And just think about that. So and I'm going to use an example for myself. I'm an early morning person. So at 6 a.m., I can take down the world. I mean, I don't need a lot of food. That's just my height. I'm ready. And so I'm all really well rested up. But later in the day, my body rhythm is a little bit off sync, because I do need more rest. I do need that renewal of resting. So that is probably one of the most critical aspects, and we don't generally think about it quite often when we're at work. But think about when you're at work and you work through your lunch. You know how you feel after like 2 o'clock? You're thinking, oh my gosh, I missed lunch. So that body rhythm is really important. And then your activity level. What is your degree of movement? As you can see, I'm very animated. I move my hands. I'm walking around. I'm pacing. I'm actually standing. My body requires a lot of activity to be fully engaged in anything that I attend to. But other people have different levels of activity. Some people are very thoughtful and mindful when they're sitting totally still. They can be very productive in really calm settings. So think about yourself. Remember, don't put your mirror away. Think about what really works for you. And then the next is accessibility. And I think this is area of awareness that we all need to look. I want to get everybody, get you a little cotton cloth, dust off your mirror, because what is your ease of approaching new people and situations? I'm just going to pause there for a moment. So are you wonderful when you walk into a room and you know everyone? Are you wonderful when you don't know everyone? Are you good at those socializers, those mixers that people go to? So for myself, I'm very uncomfortable going to those networking events and I don't know anyone and I'm passing my card around. But I'm very at ease when I know people in the space. And this is going to vary by degree for everyone. So think about that. And then think about your children in this situation when we sign them up for soccer, because they just need something to do after school. So we're going to do soccer. So what impact does that have on your child? And then what is your descriptive expression? So in a professional mode, when I am dealing with something that's unpleasant, I have my little cool face, right? I know how to say, oh, okay, well, let me think about that. I'll get back with you, right? But when I'm hanging out with my friends and I may not like some, I'm like, what? Where did that come from? And so think about how you express and where you express those kinds of affects situationally. And this is really important, right? Because when you're learning, if you are unable to take in new information, if your boss sends you to a conference to learn new information and it's totally different from what you know now, and your response is, what? I'm not going to do that. No, that's not going to work for me. That could be a problem. So just know about all the temperamental aspects. And then the last, mood swings. And I hope everyone can relate to this, right? We all have those times, and often mood swings are very much related to our basic body rhythm. When there's a disruption in rest and eating and you don't feel well, you have more mood swings. So it kind of upsets the apple cart a bit. So think of your degree of negative and positive effect. Are you always happy? And I'm a very optimistic, upbeat person. And so when you first get to know me, you're thinking, okay, is she real? Is she a human being? This can't happen. Well, I have an unusually high level of positive effect. I'm always upbeat. Where you can meet someone who the exact opposite, and they really talk about what's wrong. Today, this just didn't work out for me. So take a moment and think about where you are on here. And I cannot stress for this entire presentation, if you just look deep within yourself and be honest with yourself, because the cool thing about temperament is we can make adjustments. We can make those tweaks. So I can be very pleasant at work when I am aware that I must eat lunch at 11 o'clock. It has to happen. So I can be very, very, increase my level of activity when I know that I'm going shopping. So I can think about what those temperamental stages are for me, and how to regulate my body. So any questions about this? And this is a really exciting one for me. It seems very simple on the surface, but when you think about how you attend to your day every day and think about these elements, then I think you can see the complexity. Any questions? Okay, so now we're going to think and talk again. And so now we're going to make the connection between temperament and learning. And your question for this segment is, using the temperamental characteristics, what would be your ideal learning environment? What would be your ideal learning environment? For me, my ideal learning environment, I want class to start at 4:30 a.m. because I am ready. right? And so I know that, and I need a place where I can walk around and pace around the space. What about you? What would be the ideal learning space for you? And then why?
Okay, families, thank you for returning. So we have 3 groups we've asked to present. You've got 1 minute to share what your group talked about in regard to the question on the screen. So from group number 2, who will be representing your group?
Carolyn Riker.
Okay, Carolyn, you're on.
Well, good evening, everyone. We're so happy you're all here tonight. It was just so fun to listen. And I love these nights because I think just taking the time to think about things that you don't normally think about. And I appreciate that time and space. So we kind of talked about the things, we talked about, some of us were in ministry, some of us are working regular jobs, some of us have multiple children. And so what does that look like with homeschooling and those kinds of things? And so it was good just to recognize that everybody had different learning environments. And I think to be able to name those things and to be able to have grace with one another. And I think the more we understand about ourselves, the more we can exhibit that grace to one another. And so I think I just love listening to each people. I love how God made people and just how he made us with so many intricacies. And so it's important just listening to our 4 or 5 people in our groups, recognizing how that totally affects our kids. And when you have multiple kids in your home, how their ideal learning environments will be different based on each of their little needs, and also recognizing their basic needs, just like we talked about. Some of us were like, you know what? I got to make sure if I work through lunch, I'm going to be hangry. So don't do that, to like back up a little bit and recognizing our kids have those same needs to be able to say, what's halt? Are they hungry? Are they angry? Are they tired? Are they lonely? Are they like me? Like if I'm alone for too long, I have way too many words that are all like ready to come popping out. So I need to make sure I get my words out sometimes before I get them out to my husband because he might not want to listen now. But I think just really recognizing how our own basic needs need to be met so we can really meet our kids' needs as well. I think that's good. And sometimes I think we don't always put up that mirror and look to say, what are those things? So thank you for the time to look and see what those are.
You're muted.
Someone from group number 4. Thanks, Carolyn. Who's speaking from group number 4?
I don't know exactly what group number I am.
You are number 4.
Okay, good. All right. Well, our group talked about just the time of day was a big deal. That morning time seemed to be important for people to get things done. We talked about just getting, I thought one of the really interesting points someone brought in was having buy-in from the people that she's doing something with, having commitment or just presence, people being there for, to be engaged really energizes her to learn. That was interesting. I liked how she put that. We also talked about just like getting out for a walk or eating meals or taking a nap, like some of those things that need to happen in order to be present for learning. I mentioned how prayer, just stopping and connecting with God, or stopping and meditating and breathing, that really energizes me as well. And then one of the ladies mentioned having all the materials she needs, especially for like now having to homeschool when that's not necessarily her first choice. That's been a big deal for having a learning environment, just having all the pieces, not feeling like there's gaps there.
Thank you, Jordan. And let's see, group number 6. Who is representing that group?
I can talk. This is Michelle.
All right.
The 3 ladies that I have in our room, I guess we're all morning people. We would definitely like to get our stuff done. you know, before the afternoon hits, because it seemed like, you know, once 2 or even later started to kick around, we were kind of slouching in our chairs, and we all seemed to like to be able to see the outside world, to have an you know, an ideal learning environment, whether that just be a window you can look out or a skylight, just something to where you feel like you're not caged in, I guess. We're all pretty much hands-on. We like to be able to do like visual or tactile learning. That seemed to be our biggest, I guess, similarity as far as that goes. Some of us got distracted, kind of like, you know, those squirrel moments, you know, when you're just, you know, doing, all of a sudden something distracts you. I guess I was the only one who's like the opposite. I don't know if it has to do with, because I have so many kids. I can have 3 of them talking to me doing something, and I'll respond to every single one of them and kind of just go back to, you know, my task at hand. So I whatever reason, my brain can function in that capacity. So I guess distractions aren't a huge thing for me. I guess that was about it, really. It was open spaces, hands-on learning, doing, and just try to get as minimal distractions as possible.
Thank you all for sharing. Again, I love this work, and so I'm smiling the entire time. And wishing I was in a room with you all to share this experience with you. But I think what is amazing is that we, for me, I talk a lot about relationship. You're building relationships in these breakout rooms, and you're getting the opportunity to, you know, kind of in a microwave format, understand how other people are seeing things and what they see in the mirror. And the couple of pieces that I wrote down was engaged. Engagement is really important, and we're going to touch on that a little bit. And then I love those squirrel moments. I'm a squirrel girl, so every time a squirrel pops up, Bridget, I'm like, what was that? So I love that acknowledgement, but what I found is that that's the curiosity in the environment. And so it's you know, really motivating for me to hear that you guys are so motivated about and energized about this topic. And then Carolyn shared grace, and I was pre-looking at my slides, and if you look, there's a typo, and I'm like, yeah, everybody needs a little bit of grace, because what art is your learning styles. Yeah, so thank you for bringing those to the forefront, and I think they're great nuggets as we go on this journey in understanding our learning. And so to go specifically to learning style, I often go, and this is another topic that we can think about when we're thinking about our children, but multiple intelligence theory by Howard Gardner. And he really frames every kind of intelligence in the context of 8 categories. And Michelle, I think that's what you were alluding to, kind of how you learn and where you best learn. This is really important stuff, and it's important because remember we talked about passion a little bit, kind of how we learn. We may be passionate about something, but if it's not in the right format or mechanism, it might not stick with us. So this is really incredible to know about yourself. And then before I share them all, I also want you to know that we all have like a primary intelligence that is our go-to, that we kind of lean in on because that's comfortable, but we often share a lot of these. So don't be surprised as I go over these, you're like, that's me, or that's me as well. So and give me a second, my phone rang and took my camera off, so I need support, Deborah. How do I get back to the video? Sorry.
You're there. The slide's still up. You just need to click.
So what do I need to click?
Just to advance to the next slide.
Oh, I did it. Oh, okay. Technology, I mean, grace. I need to put that all in capital letters. So, but the first one that we're going to go over is that spatial intelligence. And that's just like kind of those folks that just kind of get a visual sense And you know, if you ever travel with someone, so if I drive through your hometown, I don't know how to get back to your hometown. I have no spatial conceptualization at all. But you know, those people say, yeah, I know where we are. And they've been in a place in one time. Or your children who can replicate something they've seen with Legos. That's like that spatial representation, the spatial intelligence, the understanding of the dimensional aspects of the world. And this one is very unique, and I just want to call out that, you know, many scientists have this capacity. So if you see this in your children, this is that's a cool call out. And then linguistic. And this area has to do with words spoken or written. That's the way Bridget learns. If you want me to get a new topic, give me the book. So if I'm talking to you, say, hey, Bridget, guess what? I learned how to bake a cake. What cookbook was that in? I want to see it. I want to see the words and touch the words and feel the words. And so many of us are learners in that way. And by the way, all schools, this is the primary learning mode. So when your kids bring their homework home, what do they need to do? Read something first. It's not always their primary mode of learning, but that's how the world is set up. So all of academics is set up from that linguistic lens. And then logical mathematical, and this area has to do with logical abstractions, reasoning, numbers, and critical thinking. And this is actually my second intelligence, and it's really strong for me. I love calculus and physics. Who knew? But it's in a book, and I read about it, so I really like it. So, I mean, that's enough. So think about, as you're looking at these things, where are the little elements? Remember I talked about that big blanket when we were talking about culture? We are still weaving. Get you some new yarn and start weaving in these other aspects of how you learn. And then and I think this is what Michelle was talking about, but kinesthetic learners, those learners who want to, who are in motion, who like to handle objects, who like to, actually be a part of the activity. For example, holidays are coming up. Sweet potato pies are very popular in my family. Everyone wants to know, is there one for dinner? That's all they need to know. I've observed my mom make those sweet potato pies. I'm old for a lot of years, and I still cannot make the sweet potato pie. So just think about, some people have that natural ability to kind of just get in there, look and see what the interrelationship of different mechanisms are, and make them happen. And then musical, and our one friend shared the ability to play multiple musical instruments. And so this is another one of my intelligence. I am a classical vocalist, and there's something about sound and music that really is appealing to me. And I can learn in that way as a secondary or tertiary mode of learning. And I want to say, with going back to music, you guys know when that whole rap scene came out, and there was a couple of research articles for I think it was for African American children in urban communities who could remember all of those words in those really complex songs, but were unable to comprehend some of the reading material was sent home from school. And they're like, why is this? Those children had musical intelligence. So the words were looped in a way that had meaning and understanding for them, and they were able to contextualize and learn the information. And then interpersonal, the ability to understand others. This is another one of my gifts, and I'm saying this, and you're guys gonna say, she has all of the intelligence. I'm saying this so that you can really look at yourself, so that you can see what yours are, and we use them in different frames, right? I build really strong relationships with people really quickly. I have an uncanny interpersonal capacity. I just connect with people. So think about your own, and how many of these could be really part of your narrative when you look in the mirror. And then introspective. I think this interpersonal, and we talked about introspective, I think this is an element that often is underutilized. This is that opportunity, and many of you have shared that you really have a great spiritual foundation. Often in that spiritual foundation, we pray, we meditate, we are able to have that beautiful self-reflective capacity, and we get our energy from that. So intrapersonal is another. And then I think it was Michelle again, that naturalistic, nurturing related to the surroundings. Some people can like sit on their porch in a blizzard. They love that, to touch the snow and to smell the moisture and all of those pieces. So how does your environment impact how you are learning? And so as you look at each of these, I want you to look in your own mirror, but think about, a few of you have shared your homeschooling your children. Think about what probable shifts you could make in how your children are learning. It could be the same material. We could all learn physics, but how do we learn physics? Is it through music? Is it logical, mathematical, linguistic? Is it spatial? Just think through how you might, really enhance the learning environment. So it ties kind of back what we were talking about before. Any questions about that?
There's one question, are linguistic learners early readers?
So we do know that linguistic learners, and thank you, I'm an early childhood education is my forte. So we do know that there is something about, the shape of words and the sound of words and how we, build relationships with meaning. So in some instances that could be true. We do know that linguistic learners do the best. Those are often your natural A students. Why? It's because the system is set up to support linguistic learners. Does it mean that these children are above the rest? No, it doesn't. It just means that these kids are always in a learning in a mode that works for them. And so you might observe from your other children. I heard that many of you have multiple children. You may say, why can't you just read your book like your sister? Well, your big sister may be a linguistic learner, and your other child may be an interpersonal learner. So what could you do? You could talk to them and have a relationship and create storytelling so that it has a relational aspect to it. The same content, but just a different approach and a different lens. So thank you for that question. And so for this think and talk, because for time, and I've prepared a lot of material because I get really excited about this stuff. I'm having as much fun as you were having. But for this think and talk, we'll stay in this group, and just a few of you share out. And this time we're going to make the connection between learning styles and how you learn. And so think about what I shared, and would it be beneficial for me to go back one slide so that you guys could see those? What is your primary intelligence? What is your primary intelligence? And I'm going to go back one, and just so that you can see those. Think about yourself and what really, when you know that you're in your groove and everything is perfect and you got this. And so are you a kinesthetic learner? Do you know how to rollerblade? For me, I could not. I was reading in a book how it's supposed to happen, but it didn't connect. So think about what works for you. I'm going to mute my mic, and Deborah, can you invite maybe 2 or 3 people to share?
Well, either that, people can also put their answers in the chat, and we can look at the chat and call out a few. We've got musical and visual, naturalistic, logical. Some said they use all of them equally.
Amelia, you use them all equally. So I would like challenge you, because for me, I do use many of them, but I don't use them equally. So I would when looking in your mirror, kind of chart for the next few days when you're using which, to see which one is your primary intelligence. I love all this visual, interpersonal. So Christina, you really like relationship. You learn on teams.
Yes. Yeah.
And Eva, I think this is impressive. You're interpersonal and you're reflective. So that's kind of Bridget. I love that. So I like to hang out with everyone and, you know, be a part of the action, but then I really am contemplative. I really think about, you know, kind of what happened during the day, what's going on. So a lot of logical, linguistic. And so now, and you don't have to share this, but think about how your experience was in school. And I want you to think about that, because when you think about your own children, when they come home, and my son had ADD, he's now 28 years old, so I no longer do homework. I remember just asking, well, why can't you be ready for backpack checks, or why can't you the things that seem so simple, but it was outside of his natural intelligence of what really worked for him. I love the musical. Well, thank you for sharing, and I hope that you can see when you're working with your kids, something that I do, since I know that I am really linguistic. My son was not linguistic, so I use the strategy just as I share it. I would pre-read books and talk through with my son to get him engaged in the work. It was a lot more work because it was different than the way I learned, but just know that for when we're working with our children, we might have to go down a different path to support their needs. Thank you all for sharing.
I do have a question.
Yes.
I was kind of telling the group about my daughter. I don't know if she's delayed. Only recently I found out, you know, she can sing her ABCs and her 1, 2, 3s, but when it comes to visually looking at them, she's not able to connect them. And I know that she's already in speech therapy, but my question is, like, how do we determine what way of learning is best for her? I know she's supposed to, you know, go see some people to kind of like, you know, dissect her brain and see how she thinks and stuff. But in the meantime, what can I do as a mom to figure out, you know, what is her way? You know what I'm saying?
So how old is she?
She just turned 5.
Okay. And so when I listen, and I'm not going to diagnose, but I just want to I think I shared this, my expertise is early childhood education. And so anytime I hear stories, and so it is really, so I do have some ideas, but what I would really recommend is that the adults in her life do really detailed observations to see what is happening, because when you say that a child can say ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, for me, that is not indicative of learning, but that is indicative of memorization. And so there's several different levels, and that's a whole, Deborah can invite me back and we could talk about child development. But but it sounds like if that maybe there could be a sensory challenge, or there could be a physiological aspect. And I'm going to say this: my son at 6 years old still had accidents, and I'm thinking he's 6. Logically this should work, but you know, after an exam, his bladder had not grown with his body. So sometimes we have physiological challenges, and just knowing that children grow and learn at different paces, and I think that the misnomer would be to compare her to other children. So if I were working with your daughter, I would look at her for her and kind of see where she is, and then what supports, if any, could I provide, and then what environmental supports would be available. And so that's the way I would look at it, without, you know, trying to diagnose, because that's very comprehensive and requires specialist. I only can tell you about development. So
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, like the ways of learning,
yeah.
To better help me as a parent.
Yeah, and I think, and those are great questions. And if you I can give Deborah has my email address, but if you have any questions, I could maybe connect you with resources that you can get more information so that can guide your support for your daughter. But thank you for asking that. And so as we move back to looking at how adults learn, I hope you guys are seeing the trend now. First, I like mirrors. Secondly, I want you to think about yourself in relation to how you could support your kids, but then how well that you could also grow yourselves, because all of us are, in the workforce. I heard Deborah mention that some of you are small business owners, and all of those tasks have a lot of different challenges, and to be really competitive, we have to be in this whole cycle of learning. And so one of the things that is really important to understand is, like, how do adults learn? So we know it's a little bit different, and then why do adults learn? And so Malcolm Knowles has done quite a bit of research on adult learning. And when adults learn, we get a few, it's for 5 key reasons. The first is self-concept. As your self-concept moves from being a dependent personality toward being a self-directed human being, and what that means is that you want to learn. You start wanting to learn. So if you have a small business, at first you may have said, I bake cupcakes really, really well. But then after that, you had to say, well, how do I sell these cupcakes? How do I market them? How do I define the community, the places in the community which I could sell them? So you move toward being like, you want to have more knowledge so that you can improve your set of skill sets. And then the adult learner experience, and that you look at learning as this larger capacity, and it's based on your experiences, and all of those experiences provide resources for you. So it's no longer that you just, many of you have been in a classroom. If you can remember high school, I still do, so I'm smiling because I still can remember. You get a topic and you're like, what? Oh, I'm just going to learn this so I can get the A and be done. But now as adults, we want more from learning. We want to create those experiences. Someone said they were a black belt. This is a perfect example of that. Build on those experiences so they'll improve the context of their learning. And then the next is a readiness to learn. We see that learning is not what someone else wants us to do, but it's something that we need to do for self-growth. And that is a tremendous move, right? Because high school, we were like, peace, I'm out of there. I did it. Yay, bye, now on to my life. But now in your life, you have to think, okay, so I'm ready to know more. I'm ready to be more. I'm ready to have more capacity, not only so I can provide for my family, so that I can do some of the things that I really enjoy doing. And then orientation of learning. And then it just goes from those subject-centered approaches where I'm learning math. How many people, look, hold your hand up if you didn't like math. So almost everybody I meet, they're like, I didn't like math. I love math, so I'm a weirdo in that way. But it moves it from that subject centered to problem solving. So if you're a small business owner and you baked 50 cupcakes and you only sold 3, that's a problem, right? Because you've used your resources, your time, your energy, all of those things. So now what you're going to say is, the next fair that I go to, I'm making 15 cupcakes, right? You're going to start problem solving. You're going to make those natural shifts so that you can benefit from what you have learned. And then lastly, the motivation to learn. And it is in what we call intrinsic. Remember, we're looking in the mirror. It's intrinsic. It's from within. Most things in school are extrinsic, meaning that I get an A, I show my mom my report card, woohoo! I get an ice cream cone, woohoo! All those things are external ways to acknowledge that you've achieved something. But when the motivation comes from in you, the researchers think that that's the strongest motivation, because that gives you that stick-to-itness on a project or any task that you're trying to complete. Any questions on that? And I'm not looking at the chat. I'll open the chat again.
No questions.
Oh, I
at this
love
time.
that. This new math hurts my brain. I love that. Okay, thanks for sharing that. But yes, but I think as we're thinking about working with our kids, especially this time, 2020 has been incredible, as we've all had to step up our game in some kind of way, right? And especially with supporting our kids with learning. And so how do adults learn? Okay, adults need to be involved in the planning and evaluation of their instruction. That means that you do not want anything if you weren't a part of it. Hopefully that, when Deborah was creating her whole catalog of what offerings were going to be this year, maybe she surveyed and said, hey, what kind of topics you guys want to hear about? You want to be exposed to things that you want to be exposed to, that you want to experience. And then oftentimes in work, many of us have been to those things we've had to do, not necessarily wanting to do. And then the next is experience, including mistakes, provides the basis for learning activities. We want to be able to make mistakes. So and I should have had that as my photo. I love Pinterest. Pinterest gives you a false sense of security, like you got it going on and you can do anything. Well, I tried a lemon cake last holiday, bought all the ingredients. It was really expensive. I rolled the lemons, it smelled so wonderful in my kitchen. I baked it and my brother said, oh my gosh, you made a big lemon pancake. It was just this flat blob, right? But that experience, I had to be in that process to learn, and those mistakes. First, Bridget won't make a lemon cake anymore. She'll purchase them. But those mistakes support my understanding. And then adults are most interested in learning subjects with immediate relevance. Why is this important to me? And this is often, if you have older kids, they're like, Mom, I don't even need this. Dad, I'm never going to do this in the real world. I'm going to be a billionaire. I don't have to do homework, right? And so, but for adults, we really need to know the relevance. What is this connected to? And so, is this going to improve the quality of my life? Sometimes those educational opportunities do. Will it improve my upward mobility in my profession? In some instances, it can, and those are the experience adults are interested in. And then lastly, adults learning is problem-centered rather than content-oriented. And again, we want to solve problems. We want real-world strategies for the real world that we live in. We do not want fictitious, hypothetical, theoretical things that don't make sense to us and our families. We want the real stuff. That is andragogy, and it's just the theory of adult learning, and many of us, I think, can relate to that. Deborah, do we have time to do another breakout? So our next think and talk will be to make the connection between andragogy and learning. So adult learning theory, how adults learn, what my nieces would say, how big people learn, what is the relationship in learning and getting more information. And so what do you think is most important about how adults learn and why? Based on what I've shared, what do you think is most important? And do you need me to go back to that slide so that you can see those elements? Would that be beneficial?
Yes.
Here they are. To be involved in the planning, have experience, mistakes or not, to be really interested in the subject, and it has to have meaning for your life. And then it needs to be problem centered rather than content centered. Thanks, Faith. You're right. We have so much going on. It has to be relevant. We're like, we have time. I need to make dinner for the family. Now some of us are homeschooling, and I heard that, and I can really, feel your pain. And now, because I could, even though education is my forte, I could have never homeschooled. I don't have the skill set or patience. So we are now just kind of in the thrust of this new kind of learning environment. Relevance, right? It has to be important. And I love problem center, right? I mean, it's like, so what is the purpose? Jordan, meeting our goals. That ties back to relevance.
I said Henry Nielsen and Velasquez.
So now we're going to move forward, and I'm actually looking for my phone to see the time that we're, okay. So for we're near the end, I promise you. I had so much stuff I wanted to share with you today because I think all of this is really important. And before we start, get your mirrors out again. When I leave, you're gonna think, oh, the lady with the mirrors? Yes, this is all about you, really introspective. So for this next section, how does your approach to conflict impact learning? And this is a place where it's not necessarily natural for people to think about, because most people say, conflict, learning, how do those go together? Anybody want to put in the chat, how do you think those go together before I start sharing? Debate. Good. Any others? Oh, learn who you are and how you handle conflict. Yes, those are assertive effects drive. That is really good. So let's talk about this. And so I think I shared, I am a trained mediator. And so what does that mean? I love drama. I love conflict. And I think in order to really tackle it, we need to understand a little bit of the theory of conflict. And Thomas and Kilman have a great strategy of looking at the different elements of conflict. And so if you look at the different squares, and you have competing, collaborating, compromising, avoiding, accommodating. We hear these all the time in normal language. If you look at the news, you can hear these topics. You hear unassertive, assertive, uncooperative, cooperative. So we hear these all the time, but what is their interrelationship when learning? And so what I want to do is, again, create a mini frame that either you have, if you're currently a student, you have a big project that's due. If you are working on a team at work, you're collaborating with your team, and you have a team project to do. And this is the lens that I'd love to walk you through this with. And so for competing, the goal is to win. When I'm competing, it's all about me. I'm going to get to the finish line first. You better move out of my way. I just went to a wedding recently, and the young woman who got married threw her bouquet, and I thought, oh, it's a competition. Everyone wants the pretty flowers. So we all have that mode of kind of competing. Collaborating is when you find a win-win solution. We're both playing in the sandbox. We're going to share our toys. We're trying to figure out a way to make this thing happen, and we're going to do it together. Compromise means that you're going to find a middle ground. And the interesting thing about middle ground, it's subjective, right? Because it's what I think is a middle ground and what you think is a middle ground. So there's still a little bit of tension in compromising. And then avoiding is when you just want to delay. You're like, I do not have time. I say that a lot when I have too much information, like, well, I'm done with that. That's avoiding. And then accommodating is when you just yield. I really don't care how this goes one way or the other. I'm just, yeah, I'm in, but not really in. So thinking about each of those, let's think about you have this work project. So if I'm competing for the work project and I have to win and my boss has given me this project, the other 4 people I'm working with, I don't need them. I am going to choose the project, complete the project, and submit it to the boss because I'm competing. Anybody can relate to that? You've been working with those people before and you're like, wait a minute, we didn't even get to put any feedback in. But that's what I'm doing if I am competing. I've already completed it. And then collaborating, I'm working on the group project with everyone, and this is a chance for idea sharing and collaboration, and then ideas about the project completion. They're mutually agreed upon. And then compromising is like, I'm getting close to the deadline. And so let's just do the big part of it because we're not going to get it all done. Let's just do one piece of it so that we get some of the project done. Avoiding means the deadline's over. I'm not even going to do it. I'm probably going to get fired, by the way, if I'm working on a team at work, but I'm just not going to do that. And then accommodating would be let others take the lead. So you have this pseudo buy-in. You're kind of there, but you're like, whatever you do, I'll do whatever you guys do. Think about that in the context of learning. And then go one step further. Think about how your children are learning. Have you ever wondered why your child didn't turn in an assignment that was 2 sentences? Anybody? I know I told my son's name is Ryan. Ryan, you only needed 3 sentences. Avoiding. Well, I knew the teacher wasn't gonna give me a good grade, so I didn't turn it in, right? So think about how all of that plays, and then what is your interrelationship in the learning process? Which person are you on this chart? And where do you generally tend to go? I'm going to say I'm a natural competitor. Deborah knows I've worked with Deborah before, and I'm like, it's done. Here it is. I don't want anyone talking about it. Don't give me your feedback. I'm done, Deborah. This is mine. Take it. It's the perfect one, right? And I am learning how to collaborate and compromise. I see a thumbs up on that because that is sometimes that seems like the easier route sometimes, doesn't it? And so, but what about those people that are on your teams? And you're like, oh man, I can't believe she's on a team because she's not going to do anything. Those avoiders. Or they're not going to even contribute to anything, the accommodators. They're just going to come take all the glory and be smiling when they give us those balloons at work saying we had the best team. So, but think about that in your learning and think about how you contribute. And moreover, think about how you're working with your children now and what's really important for them. And this is a model that you can actually teach to children in a different way to say, oh, you like to win a lot. What happens if you don't win? Well, what happens if Deborah plays with Bridget? You can use that language to help them think of different ways to kind of navigate the learning process. Any questions on this one? And I'm checking the chat now. Competition. So I'm a natural competitor. I love it. And I love that. Thank you, Lacey. If you are too busy competing, guess what you lose out on? Relationship. You have bypassed all of the people to get your stuff done. You didn't have to talk to them, look at them. You didn't have to be a part of that. collaboration. And the ideal area of this chart is collaboration. How can we create those win-win solutions? And Amelia, thank you for sharing. You move between them, probably situationally. So thank you for sharing that. So think and talk. Now we're making a connection. Hope your mirrors are clean. You got to have them wiped off so you can see this stuff. What is your go-to resolution style? And you shared some of them in the comments. And what is your style under pressure? So I want everybody to just take a few moments. What is your style under pressure? And then jot them down in the chat for me. These are great. I'd like to see that generally when we're under pressure, have anyone realized the pattern? We generally go to competing and avoiding, the most extreme. When we're under pressure, we're just like, and if you're a mom or a dad, we have, learned to get it done, right? Here, take the ice cream cone, be quiet, right? It's just like, okay, you're done. We're done with that. So yes, this is really good. And I think continue to think about these concepts as you think about your learning and your working on teams. So we have one more section. So if you guys could bear with me, I promise we're almost done. I just had so much to share, Deborah. So much to share. And so the next aspect is personality. And I'm actually a personality trainer, and I train the color personality. And many of you may have had this in your workplace, or that you do it in churches, volunteer organizations. And the cool thing about this concept is it helps you to identify your talents and gifts. And I think that's one thing that many of us don't often go to. When I talk to adult learners, they always tell me what they can't do. So when I facilitate a college classroom, the first day of school, they walk up to me, "Hi, Dr. Mitchell, I just want you to know I'm not good at tests." Many of us don't celebrate the things that we do really, really well, but this can help us to do that. And then it identifies the things that you really need in order to learn, but then also the things that you need to feel capable in just your everyday work. What are those things that kind of feed the spirit a little bit? And then it identifies your values, right? It pushes those values right to the front. So if you remember our talk about culture, values was a huge aspect of our culture. And then more importantly, it identifies how you relate to others. And this is important because if I know what your personality type is, and I've been doing this long enough that I can kind of guesstimate people, what I do is shift what I do. I'm like, okay, Deborah is a very organized person. That's not my natural language. I'm not naturally organized, but I hear that's what she's saying. So I'm going to have that language with her. And so this is, and I had to apologize because there wasn't a link to do this. And maybe if we could take like 4 minutes. So on a piece of paper, if you could just create those grids. So just like 5 rows and 4.
Only Bridget?
Yes.
Or Dr. Mitchell?
Either one.
Because it just takes a little time to think about this, why don't you tell them about it, and then I can send the slides to them so they have time to think through it, and then come up with the color that best matches them.
I think that would work well, and you can always invite me back. Hint, hint. I'm just going to say it.
Absolutely. Hint, hint.
So we're going to make the connection between personality and learning. And I put, what is your color personality? You don't know that yet, but I'm going to just do a brief description in the essence of time. And I will love to come and do the whole color thing with you. It's a real fun activity. So what are the characteristics of your color? So there are 4 primary colors: gold, And the goals are planners. Those are the people who always have a list. If you look at some of those shows on HGTV when everything is neat in baskets with labels on them, those people are gold. My brain does not work like that. I've tried it and it just looks like, I don't know what's in my baskets. Or maybe some of you are with me. I'm like, I bought the baskets, it didn't do it. Then blues are the feelers. Those are the people that are like, it is beautiful outside. I'm calling everybody. We're having a barbecue. That's what we're doing. We are going to connect. And right now, blues are really struggling in the virus situation, right? They don't have those natural linkages and natural connections with people. So a lot of those folks who are blue are really worried. If you listen to your blue friends, they'll say, oh, I hope Bridget gets some sunshine. Oh my gosh, I wish I could take a meal to a person. They really do worry because how feelings are most important. Green are thinkers. That's me. We are in the clouds. If you have those friends and you're always rolling your eyes thinking, can you tell me something that's real? I have a theorist for every situation in the world. Remember, I'm linguistic, so I read everything. So some of us are those thinkers. They're very analytical. They want to research. And when they're working with you, they're always like, wait, I'm going to get more information. Wait, I'll be right back. And the blues are like, are you kidding me? We just all want to have a barbecue. And the golds were like, okay, I had the list of what we could eat, but the greens are trying to research and see if it's healthy. So all of those things are there. And then the orange are the doers. Who said they were hands-on? These are oranges. So if we were planning a barbecue on the roof of a high rise and had a swimming pool below, the oranges have already jumped off the roof. They are there. They don't need all of this other stuff. They just need the experience that's really important for them. And so how does this impact how we learn? It impacts how we learn because it deals with how we process. So goals are planners. You may see those kids with those neat book bags. So I've seen, so I work in early childhood. There was a little girl, her book bag was so neat. It looked unreal. It looked like I bought it from Target. I'm like, how did this happen? So it's just really, connected. Then you see those blues, those kids that come home every day and say, I got a new friend. All right, my friend's puppy dog's sick. I'm sad. They are just really in tune with that. And then those thinkers, well, why, Mom? Why? And you just want to say it's just bedtime. That's why. I just said bedtime. But why is it bedtime? And so those doers are the kids who've already colored your walls, right? They already had the markers and they just really scribbled all over your walls. Why is this important? Because this isn't all of us. We all interact in the world in this way. So how does your color personality impact how you learn? So if you are orange, you perform best in competition. Remember, oranges are doers. They have jumped off the roof. They have already done it. I mean, while you're planning, they're like, what are you waiting for? We've done this already. And then the goals. Goals are best with structure. So for example, I have a sister that's gold, and when we have family vacations, it is miserable with her because she's like, okay, at 8:05, we look at the dolphins. Oh, it's 8:06. Now we have to walk. Now we have to breathe. I mean, the structure really does ground them in what they do and how they take in information. And then greens, and I am a green, we work independently. And that's probably the reason that we complete the task well before everyone else has done it, because we're solitary. We sit in our space and we make it happen. And then last, blues. Remember, you guys are a party. You gotta love blues and golds. If you have a blues and oranges, there is a party with blues and oranges in the place. I mean, and there's good food and dancing and all of that, because they are really relational and really want to have fun. So what is the overall impact of all of this? So the benefits of knowing who you are. And so at the end of this, if you don't remember anything else, remember the mirror. So when you're working with your kids at home, just stop and think, okay, I know how I take in the world, and I so you're able to achieve a challenge or a degree. And then you can leverage your capacity. You know what you're good at. So you can do it until you get the best results. You know it already. You know what you bring to the table. You are clear when you have that PTA group or your church group and you're working, you say, hey, I do this really well. So you can leverage your capacity. And then efficacy, you can achieve your accomplishments. You can be successful because you already know those strengths, right? Because what I really talked about today was really, what do you bring to the table? How strong are you, and in what ways are you strong? And in what ways does that impact your interactions with others? And then transferability, that allows you to support other people. Other people in your family, your community, your work, more important, your kids, right?
And this one will be...
We're all moms, and so that's really important.
And this one will be white.
Understand those elements.
I want them to stick and some.
I think somebody might that we are able to really use what we know about ourselves to really bring out the best in our kids. And so as I leave you tonight, and I have way too much information, and I know I'm gonna come back and play. I'm just so confident. You guys have been great, but I'd love to leave you with this, one of my favorite quotes. Xander and Xander, they're a husband and wife team, and they wrote the book, Art of Possibilities, but create your own reality. So remember when we wove that beautiful blanket of culture and personality and learning styles and temperament, all of those elements are the beauty in you. That's your uniqueness. That's the good stuff that you bring. So with that, create your own reality, and don't let anybody stop you. Just always remember this presentation. Say, you know what? Bridget said, don't let anybody stop me. Live in the context of your strengths. And that's all I have. And now I'll open it up for any questions if we have time for one or two.
Any questions, families? We will send you a copy of Dr. Mitchell's presentation, so you can certainly look at the colors presentation and figure out what color you are. All right, let's give her some appreciation.
I think she
Awesome,
did great,
awesome.
and I learned a lot. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. This was so incredibly fun.